A hug is more than just physical contact. It is a silent language, a nonverbal exchange of emotions, intentions, and energy. Many people fail to realize the depth of communication that happens in a single embrace. It is not just about two bodies touching. It is about the transfer of unspoken thoughts and emotions that words often fail to express. When a man hugs a woman, it can mean many different things depending on the circumstances, the type of connection they share, and the energy he brings into that embrace. However, the biggest mistake many women make is assuming that every hug carries a romantic or deeply emotional meaning. The truth is, a hug can be as simple as a casual greeting, an expression of politeness, or even an automatic response driven by social norms rather than personal intention. The way a man hugs you says more about his true feelings than the mere act itself. Understanding this difference is crucial to avoiding unnecessary emotional confusion. In the world of human interaction, physical gestures hold significant weight, but they are often misinterpreted. Some women assume that a man's hug is an indicator of his emotions toward them, believing that if he hugs them warmly or frequently, it must mean he has deeper feelings. But this assumption can be misleading. A hug might stem from many different motivations. Sometimes it is an act of comfort, given to reassure someone during a difficult time. Other times, it is an act of habit, a friendly gesture, exchanged without deep thought. A hug could also be a way of maintaining appearances in a social setting, a formality rather than a sincere act of emotional connection. The key to understanding a hug lies in the energy behind it, not just the physical movement. A genuine, heartfelt hug feels different from a forced or obligatory one. When a man truly values you, his embrace will carry warmth, presence, and authenticity. His energy will feel consistent with his words and actions. On the other hand, if a hug feels distant, hurried, or impersonal, it is likely just that, an empty gesture rather than an indication of deeper meaning. Women who rely too much on physical contact to gauge a man's emotions often find themselves misled by their own expectations rather than reality. In many cases, a hug does not mean that a man has romantic interest or deep emotional attachment. Some men are naturally more physically expressive. They hug everyone as part of their social personality. To these men, a hug is no different from a handshake or a pat on the back. It is simply a way of acknowledging someone's presence. On the other hand, there are men who rarely give hugs. And when they do, it carries significant meaning. The challenge comes when a woman assumes that every hug from every man holds the same level of emotional weight. This assumption can lead to unnecessary heartache, as she may begin to build emotional expectations based on something that was never intended to be a sign of love or devotion. Another important factor to consider is the context of the hug. A hug given in a moment of vulnerability, such as during a time of sadness or distress, might feel more meaningful, but that does not necessarily mean the man sees it as anything beyond a moment of support. Similarly, a hug exchanged during a casual interaction, such as a greeting at a social gathering, may hold little significance beyond simple courtesy. Recognizing these distinctions is essential for maintaining emotional clarity and avoiding misinterpretation. There is also the element of cultural and personal differences in how people express physical affection. In some cultures, hugging is a common and frequent gesture used among friends, colleagues, and even acquaintances. In others, it is reserved for close relationships and carries more weight. Likewise, personal upbringing and personality traits play a role in how a man expresses himself physically. Some men are naturally affectionate and comfortable with hugging, while others may only offer a hug when they truly mean it. Without understanding these nuances, it is easy to project personal beliefs onto someone else's actions, leading to confusion or disappointment. Women who seek to understand a man's true intentions through his hugs must pay attention not just to the embrace itself, but to the entirety of his behavior. A hug alone is not enough to determine someone's feelings. It must be evaluated alongside his words, actions, consistency, and overall treatment of the relationship. If a man hugs you warmly, but his words and actions do not align with emotional investment, then the hug alone should not be taken as a sign of deeper interest. Conversely, if a man rarely hugs but consistently shows care, support, and emotional presence, then his feelings are likely stronger than his physical expressions might suggest. Many negative emotions arise from the misinterpretation of physical gestures. Women who rely too heavily on a hug as a measure of a man's feelings set themselves up for disappointment, frustration, and unnecessary heartache. Instead of assuming that every hug is an indicator of affection, the focus should be on understanding the broader picture, reading his overall energy, observing his actions, and maintaining emotional detachment from surface-level gestures. This shift in perspective allows for a more accurate understanding of relationships, preventing unnecessary emotional confusion. The ability to read the true intention behind a hug comes from emotional awareness and self-control. When a woman is emotionally grounded, she does not seek meaning in every small physical interaction. She does not build expectations from a simple embrace. Instead, she sees a hug for what it is, a moment of connection that may or may not carry deeper meaning. By mastering this mindset, she gains the power to navigate relationships with clarity and strength, avoiding the pitfalls of false assumptions and emotional dependency. Energy never lies. It is the most honest form of communication, one that exists beyond words, beyond gestures, and beyond the superficial layers of human interaction. A hug might seem like a simple act of physical closeness, but the truth behind it is embedded in the energy being transferred. The energy a man carries into an embrace reveals more about his intentions than the embrace itself. If you learn how to read energy instead of relying on words or gestures, you will begin to understand people on a much deeper level. The challenge is that most people are conditioned to listen to what is being said rather than what is being felt. They focus on the obvious instead of tuning into the subtleties of what energy is communicating. And that is where they get misled. Every human being emits energy, whether they are aware of it or not. This energy is shaped by emotions, thoughts, intentions, and the subconscious state of mind. When a man hugs you, he is not just wrapping his arms around you, he is bringing his entire emotional state into that moment. If he is fully present, engaged, and genuinely cares about you, his hug will feel warm, secure, and reassuring. His energy will embrace you just as much as his arms do. On the other hand, if his mind is elsewhere, if he feels obligated to hug you rather than desiring to, or if there is hesitation in his touch, you will sense it immediately. The hug may still happen, but something will feel off. That is the language of energy speaking to you. And the moment you learn to trust that feeling, you free yourself from confusion and self-doubt. People often ignore energy because they are too focused on their expectations. If a woman hopes that a man cares for her, she might misinterpret his hug as proof of his affection. She might dismiss the lack of warmth in his energy and focus only on the fact that the hug happened. But a hug without the right energy is just an empty gesture. It does not carry the emotional weight she hopes it does. This is why so many women find themselves feeling disappointed or uncertain after experiencing physical affection. They sense something is missing but cannot quite articulate what it is. That missing piece is the energy, or rather, the lack of emotional depth behind the action. When a man truly values you, his hug will feel different. It will feel intentional, as if he is fully present in that moment with you. His embrace will not feel rushed, forced, or hollow. Instead, it will carry a sense of connection, a silent reassurance that he is exactly where he wants to be. His energy will align with his actions, making you feel safe and secure. But if his hug feels distant, if his energy feels distracted or hesitant, that is a sign that something is not aligned. It does not mean he dislikes you or is intentionally deceiving you, but it does mean that his heart is not fully in it. And when a woman ignores that feeling, she risks creating expectations that were never meant to be fulfilled. This is why it is crucial to trust your instincts. Energy is always speaking, but most people doubt what they feel because they want to believe something different. If a hug leaves you feeling uncertain, there is a reason for that. If it feels incomplete, shallow, or transactional, do not overlook that sensation. Your subconscious mind picks up on cues that your logical mind often dismisses. It registers the tension in his body, the hesitation in his movements, and the emotional absence in his touch. When something feels off, it usually is. The key is to stop second-guessing yourself and start recognizing that your intuition is one of the most powerful tools you have. Another important factor to consider is the consistency of a man's energy. A one-time hug might be affected by external circumstances. Maybe he had a bad day, maybe he was distracted by something else in his life. But over time, patterns emerge. If every hug he gives feels disconnected, if there is always something missing in the energy he brings to the interaction, then that is not a coincidence. It is an indication of where he stands emotionally. On the flip side, if his hugs consistently feel genuine, if his energy always carries warmth and presence, then that is a reflection of his true feelings. Understanding energy also prevents unnecessary heartbreak. Many women hold onto memories of affectionate moments, replaying hugs and physical gestures in their minds as if they are proof of something greater. But if the energy behind those moments was not aligned with genuine emotional investment, then those memories are based on illusion rather than reality. This is why learning to read energy is so powerful. It allows you to see beyond the surface, to recognize when something is real and when it is just an empty motion. Energy never lies, but people do. They say things they do not mean. They act in ways that contradict their true feelings. They go through the motions without being emotionally present. But their energy will always reveal the truth. A hug filled with love feels different from a hug given out of politeness. A man who embraces you with intention will make you feel it not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. The way he holds you, the way his body responds, the level of presence he brings. These are the real indicators of how he feels. Most women get caught in the trap of wishful thinking because they want to believe in something more than what is actually being shown. They ignore their instincts because they do not want to face the possibility that the man they care about does not feel the same way. But ignoring energy does not change reality. It only delays the realization. The moment you start trusting what you feel instead of what you want to believe, you take control of your emotion. You stop falling into the cycle of misinterpretation and disappointment. You start seeing things as they are, not as you hope they will be. Learning to read energy does not just help you understand men, it helps you understand yourself. It teaches you to value emotional honesty over empty gestures. It shows you the power of intuition and the importance of trusting what you feel. Once you develop this awareness, you no longer need to seek answers in words or actions alone. You become attuned to the truth that exists beneath the surface, and that truth will never mislead you. Every interaction between two people carries an emotional weight, whether it is visible or not. When a man hugs a woman, his body language, the duration of the hug, and the energy he carries into it reveal more about his emotions than words ever could. However, many women misinterpret these signals because they are looking at the gesture itself rather than the depth behind it. The truth is, if a man is not emotionally invested in you, his hug will lack a certain warmth, a certain intention that only comes from true connection. The problem arises when women assume that just because a man hugs them, he must care for them on a deeper level. But a hug without genuine emotional presence is just that, an empty action, a physical routine that carries no real meaning. The biggest mistake women make is assuming that every hug from a man is an expression of emotional closeness. But not all hugs are created equal. There is a difference between a hug that is given out of politeness and one that is given out of true affection. There is a difference between a hug that happens because it is expected in a social setting and a hug that happens because he genuinely wants to hold you close. The problem is that many women project their own emotions onto a man's actions. They feel something when he embraces them, and they assume he must feel the same. But feelings are not always mutual, and emotional investment cannot be measured by a single gesture. When a man is emotionally detached, his hug will feel different. It may be brief, lacking warmth, or given with a certain level of stiffness. His arms may go around you, but his heart is not in it. There's no lingering, no depth, no true sense of connection. You may feel it instinctively that something is missing, but if you allow your emotions to override your intuition, you may convince yourself that the hug means more than it actually does. This is where many women set themselves up for disappointment by attaching too much meaning to an action that in reality is not an indicator of deep emotion. On the other hand, when a man is truly invested in you, his hug will reflect that emotional attachment. He will hold you in a way that feels secure, like he is fully present in that moment. His embrace will not feel rushed or forced. It will feel intentional. There will be a certain level of gentleness or protectiveness, a sense that he wants you close to him, not because he has to, but because he truly desires it. The way he pulls you in, the way his body responds, the level of presence he brings to that moment. All of these are signals of real emotional connection. But when those elements are missing, when a hug feels empty or obligatory, it is a sign that his emotional investment is not where you might hope it to be. Women often overlook these signs because they are searching for reassurance. They want to believe that a man cares, that he is emotionally involved, that his actions are proof of something deeper. But the truth is, a man can hug you and feel nothing beyond the moment. He can go through the motions without his heart being engaged. This is why paying attention to his overall behavior is crucial. A man's true emotional state is not revealed in a single hug, but in the consistency of his actions, in the way he treats you outside of physical gestures. If he hugs you warmly, but is emotionally distant in every other aspect of your relationship, then the hug is not a reflection of deep connection. It is just a physical act, nothing more. There's also the reality that some men are naturally more physically expressive while others are not. Some men hug frequently and with many people, making it a normal part of their interactions rather than something special. Other men reserve hugs for moments of true emotional significance. Understanding this distinction can prevent a woman from misinterpreting his actions. Just because a man is physically affectionate does not mean he is emotionally attached. If he hugs everyone in the same way, then his hug is simply a habit rather than a personal expression of love or connection. Another common mistake women make is assuming that a longer hug automatically means deeper emotion. While duration can sometimes indicate closeness, it is not always a reliable measure. A man may hold on to you longer because he enjoys physical contact, but that does not mean he is emotionally committed to you. A long hug given without true emotional presence is still an empty hug. It might feel comforting in the moment, but it does not guarantee that he sees you in a meaningful way. It is not the length of the hug that matters most, it is the energy he brings to it. Women who attach too much meaning to physical gestures often set themselves up for emotional pain. They invest in a fantasy rather than reality, reading too deeply into actions that do not necessarily indicate true feelings. This is why understanding emotional detachment is so important. A man who is emotionally distant will show it in more ways than just his hugs. He will be inconsistent in his words, unreliable in his actions, and absent in the moments where emotional depth is required. If a man only expresses affection through occasional hugs but fails to show real emotional investment in other ways, then his actions do not align with true attachment. Recognizing these differences is essential for emotional clarity. A hug is just one part of the bigger picture. And if the rest of his behavior does not support the idea of deep emotional involvement, then the hug itself should not be taken as proof of anything more. Women who learn to separate physical gestures from emotional reality gain a stronger sense of self-awareness and avoid unnecessary heartbreak. They stop seeking validation in surface level interactions and start looking for the deeper signs of true emotional investment. Instead of holding on to false hope based on a fleeting moment of physical closeness, they learn to see things for what they really are. Men who are emotionally distant may still engage in physical affection, but their energy will always reveal the truth. Their hugs may feel routine, their touch may lack warmth, and their presence may be inconsistent. When a woman stops trying to force meaning onto these moments and instead focuses on the broader patterns of his behavior, she gains clarity. She stops getting lost in wishful thinking and starts understanding what is truly in front of her. Learning to recognize emotional detachment allows a woman to protect her heart and invest her energy in relationships that are built on genuine emotional connection rather than fleeting physical gestures. The way a man hugs you says more about his subconscious mind than his words ever could. A hug is not just a physical act, it is a transfer of energy, an unspoken language that carries the weight of emotions, thoughts, and intentions. But what many women fail to realize is that a man's subconscious mind is always at work, even when he is not consciously aware of it. His body moves in ways that align with his true emotions, his true level of attachment, and his true perception of you. A hug, therefore, is not just about closeness. It is about the energy he brings into that closeness. When you learn to decode his subconscious behavior during a hug, you begin to see the truth that words often try to disguise. A man's subconscious mind does not allow him to fake presence. If he is genuinely emotionally invested in you, his hug will feel intentional, firm, and secure. His arms will wrap around you in a way that makes you feel safe, like he is holding you because he truly wants to. His body will lean into yours, his breathing will slow down, and his hands will rest gently in a way that signals comfort and connection. He might even hold you just a moment longer than necessary because subconsciously he does not want to let go. That is the kind of embrace that reveals emotional depth. It is not rehearsed, it is not forced, and it is not just a physical act. It is an extension of his true feelings. His subconscious does not allow him to be passive in that moment because he is fully engaged in the act of holding you. On the other hand, when a man's heart is not in it, his subconscious mind will betray him. His hug may feel rushed, weak, or disconnected. He may embrace you, but his arms might not fully close around you, leaving a noticeable gap between your bodies. His hands may rest awkwardly, or he may release you too quickly, as if he is fulfilling an obligation rather than truly desiring that moment of closeness. He might even pat your back, a subconscious gesture that often signals detachment rather than intimacy. Even if he is smiling, even if he is saying the right words, his body will tell the truth. His subconscious mind will not allow him to engage with you in a way that feels deeply connected, because deep down, he is not emotionally tied to that moment. There are also subtle micro-expressions and body language cues that reveal subconscious feelings. If a man closes his eyes when he hugs you, it often means he is fully present in that moment, allowing himself to feel the depth of the embrace. If he gently rests his head against yours or breathes in deeply while holding you, that is a subconscious sign of emotional comfort and connection. But if he keeps his posture stiff if his eyes remain open and distracted, or if his body is slightly turned away, these are subconscious indicators that he is not entirely engaged. His mind might be elsewhere. His heart might not be in it. And his subconscious mind is preventing him from fully surrendering to the moment. Another powerful indicator of a man's subconscious emotions is the way he hugs you over time. A one-time hug may not reveal much, but consistency is everything. If he always hugs you with warmth and presence, if every embrace feels like he truly enjoys being close to you, then that is a sign of emotional investment. But if his hugs fluctuate, if some days they are warm and other days they are distant, it means his emotions toward you are inconsistent. His subconscious mind is revealing that he is unsure about his feelings, even if he has not consciously admitted it to himself. The duration of the hug also matters, but not in the way most people think. It is not about how long a hug lasts, but about the energy within that duration. A short but sincere hug can be more meaningful than a long, emotionless one. If a man hugs you briefly but holds you firmly and pulls you close, his subconscious mind is engaged in that moment. He might not be someone who lingers in an embrace, but the quality of that connection is still genuine. However, if a man gives you a long hug yet his arms remain loose, if his body does not lean into yours, or if he seems distant despite the duration, then his subconscious mind is signaling detachment. Many women misinterpret these subconscious cues because they are focused on their own emotions rather than reading his energy. They feel comfort in a hug and assume he must feel the same. But what they fail to realize is that their emotional perception is not always a reflection of his reality. Just because you feel warmth does not mean he is experiencing the same level of connection. A hug can feel good simply because it fulfills a need for closeness, but that does not mean it is backed by deep emotions. The key is to separate your feelings from his actions and observe what his subconscious mind is communicating beyond the surface. One of the strongest subconscious indicators of a man's emotional investment is whether or not he initiates hugs consistently. If he is always the one pulling you in, if he seeks out moments to hold you, if he naturally reaches for you in ways that feel effortless, then his subconscious mind is showing you that he desires that closeness. He does not have to think about it. His body moves toward you naturally. But if you are always the one initiating, if he only hugs you in response rather than instinctively reaching for you, then his subconscious mind is revealing that he does not crave that connection in the same way. Subconscious behavior cannot be hidden for long. A man might try to convince you with words that he cares, that he is emotionally present, that he values you, but his body will always reveal the truth. His energy will show whether he is deeply engaged or simply going through the motions. When a man hugs you, his subconscious mind is either drawing him closer to you or keeping him at a distance. The more you learn to read those signals, the less confusion you will experience in your relationships. The truth is always there, not in what he says, not in what you want to believe, but in the unspoken language of his subconscious mind. A hug is never just a hug. It carries within it layers of meaning, energy, and intention. It is a direct expression of what a person feels in the moment, even if they are not fully aware of it themselves. The energy a man transfers to you in an embrace is a silent message, a deeper truth that goes beyond words. Every touch, every shift in his posture, every second he holds you or lets go, reveals something about what is going on inside his mind and heart. But many women do not pay attention to the energy behind the action. They focus only on the action itself. They assume that if a man hugs them, it must mean something positive, something warm, something affectionate. But this is not always the case. A hug can be full of love, but it can also be full of indifference, hesitation, or even emotional withdrawal. The difference is in the energy he brings into that embrace. And if you are not tuned into that energy, you might misinterpret what is really happening. Energy does not lie. A man may say he cares, he may act polite, he may smile and go through the motions of being present, but the energy he gives off will always reveal the truth. When he hugs you, his energy is either drawing you in or keeping you at a distance. It is either warm, inviting, and full of connection, or it is cold, detached, and lacking in sincerity. A man who is genuinely connected to you will hug you with presence. He will be there fully in that moment. His touch will feel firm. His body will be engaged. His arms will wrap around you with intention. You will feel it, not just physically, but emotionally. His energy will tell you that he wants you close, that he feels something deep and meaningful when he embraces you. That kind of hug is powerful. It is not just a formality, not just a routine. It is an expression of something real. But when a man is emotionally distant, his hug will reflect that emotional distance. His arms may go around you, but they may feel light, hesitant, or weak. His body may be close, but his energy will feel far away. He may release you too soon, as if he is fulfilling an obligation rather than truly wanting to hold you. Or worse, he may hug you with a forced politeness, like someone who knows they are supposed to act affectionate but does not actually feel that affection deep down. You will feel the absence of warmth, the lack of connection, the subtle withdrawal of energy, even as he stands right in front of you. That is the kind of hug that leaves you feeling unsatisfied, even if you do not immediately understand why. It is the kind of hug that makes you question his feelings, even if he has not said anything to indicate that something is wrong. That is because energy is more powerful than words. It is felt, not spoken. The biggest mistake women make is ignoring these energetic cues and convincing themselves that a hug is just a hug. But nothing in human interaction is ever just surface level. Everything carries an underlying meaning, a truth that is revealed in the energy exchange between two people. If a man consistently hugs you in a way that feels distant, if you sense that something is off, if you feel like you are the only one truly present in the moment, then that is your intuition picking up on his energy. And your intuition is rarely wrong. The problem is too many people override their intuition with wishful thinking. They focus on what they want to believe rather than what is actually being communicated through energy. But ignoring energy does not change reality. It only delays the moment of realization. Another important aspect of energy is how it shifts over time. A man who once hugged you with warmth, presence, and connection, but suddenly starts giving you distant, detached hugs, is communicating something without saying it outright. Energy does not change for no reason. If his embrace feels different, if his touch lacks the depth it once had, that means something inside him has shifted. Maybe he is emotionally withdrawing. Maybe he is unsure about his feelings. Maybe he is processing something he is not ready to discuss. Whatever the reason, the energy in his hug will reflect his inner state. A woman who understands this does not need to beg for answers. She already has them. She does not need to ask what's wrong when she can already feel the answer in the way his energy has changed. Some men hug out of habit rather than feeling. They know it is expected in certain situations, so they go through the motions without actually bringing any real emotion into the moment. These are the hugs that feel empty, like a handshake rather than an embrace. They are the ones that make you feel more alone afterward rather than more connected. If you have ever experienced a hug that left you feeling hollow, that is because the energy was missing. A hug without energy is just two bodies coming into brief contact. It does not create warmth. It does not generate connection. It does not mean anything deeper. And yet many women misinterpret these moments because they are looking for signs that a man cares, even when those signs are not really there. They tell themselves, at least he hugged me, rather than asking, What did that hug actually feel like? But settling for the physical gesture without considering the energy behind it leads to confusion, false hope, and unnecessary emotional pain. Energy is the most honest form of communication. It cannot be faked, manipulated, or forced. It is either there or it is not. If you want to truly understand how a man feels about you, pay attention to the energy he brings into his embrace. Does he hold you with presence, or does he seem distracted? Does his touch make you feel secure, or does it feel obligatory? Does he pull you in naturally, or does it seem like he is simply going through the motion? The answers to these questions will tell you far more about his true feelings than any words he might say. A man who values you will hug you with an energy that reassures you, that makes you feel safe, that leaves no doubt in your mind about where he stands. A man who is indifferent will hug you with an energy that feels off, that makes you question things, that leaves you wondering if he even meant it. Understanding energy is the key to emotional clarity. It allows you to see beyond surface level actions and recognize what is truly being communicated. It prevents you from misinterpreting physical gestures and attaching meaning where there is none. It protects you from false assumptions and helps you navigate relationships with wisdom and awareness. When you learn to read energy, you no longer need to ask how someone feels about you. You will already know. It will be there in the way they hold you, in the way they touch you, in the way their presence either pulls you in or keeps you at a distance. And once you learn to trust that awareness, you will never again be confused by a hug that carries no real meaning. The way a man hugs you can reveal far more than just how he feels in the moment. It can be a reflection of his true nature, his emotional availability, and even his long-term intentions. A hug is not just a fleeting moment of physical contact. It is an exchange of energy, a silent conversation between two souls. If you pay close attention, you will notice that the way a man embraces you carries a message about how he values you, what he expects from you, and how much emotional depth he is willing to share. Some men hug with sincerity, with warmth, with an undeniable presence that makes you feel cherished and protected. Their energy is open, their body language is relaxed, and they hold you in a way that feels genuine. These are the men who value emotional connection, who do not see a hug as just a routine, but as an opportunity to express something deeper. When a man like this hugs you, you feel it, not just on the surface, but deep in your soul. You feel his presence, his care, his willingness to be there for you in ways that go beyond physical affection. He does not pull away too quickly, nor does he hesitate when he brings you close. There is no reluctance in his embrace, no stiffness in his posture, no emotional distance disguised behind a polite gesture. A hug from a man like this leaves you feeling safe, seen, and valued. It reassures you even if no words are spoken. But not all men hug this way. Some men hug out of obligation. Their embrace lacks energy. Their arms feel loose or hesitant, and their body is not fully engaged in the moment. These are the men who are either emotionally unavailable or simply not as invested as you may think. They might hug because they know it is expected, because it is the polite thing to do, or because they want to avoid confrontation. But their energy does not lie. When you hug them, you can feel a disconnect. It is as if their body is there, but their heart and mind are elsewhere. And if you are not paying attention, you might overlook this detail and assume that any hug is a good sign. But a hug without energy is just a formality. It is empty. It does not create warmth. It does not strengthen connection. And it does not bring the kind of reassurance that a true embrace does. Some men hug as a form of control. They use physical closeness not to express genuine affection, but to maintain a certain level of influence over you. These are the men who know how much you crave connection, and they give just enough to keep you emotionally invested, but never enough to create real security. Their hugs are strategic. They come at moments when you might be questioning their feelings, when you might be pulling away, when you might be on the verge of walking out of their life. They sense this. And they use physical affection as a way to keep you engaged. But if you look closely, you will realize that their energy is not truly open. Their embrace does not come from a place of deep emotional availability. It comes from a place of control, of knowing that a well-timed hug can keep you from detaching completely. And many women fall into this trap. They feel the temporary warmth of that moment, and they convince themselves that it means something deeper. But if a man only hugs you when he feels like he is losing you, that is not affection. It is manipulation. Then there are the men who hug as a performance. They know how to appear affectionate, how to give the kind of hug that seems warm and loving on the surface. But if you are truly attuned to energy, you will notice the subtle signs that something is off. A man like this might hold you too long in public, not because he truly values the moment, but because he knows it looks good to others. He might pull you in with just the right amount of force, just enough warmth to make you feel wanted. But if you were to pay attention to his energy in private moments, you would notice the inconsistency. His hugs are not a reflection of his true feelings. They are a tool for shaping perception. He might be affectionate when others are watching, but distant when you are alone. He might give you long embraces when you are feeling vulnerable, but avoid them when you are at your strongest. This is a man who understands the power of physical connection, but does not use it with genuine intention. And if you are not careful, you might mistake his ability to give a convincing hug for real emotional depth. A man's hug tells you everything you need to know about his nature. A man who is consistent, who hugs with warmth both in public and in private, who embraces you in a way that feels real and unforced. This is a man who is emotionally available, who values connection, who sees you as more than just a temporary presence in his life. A man whose hugs feel distant, strategic, or inconsistent is showing you through his energy that he is either emotionally detached, manipulative, or unsure about what he truly wants. And this is why it is so important to trust what you feel, not just what you see. Many women make the mistake of overanalyzing words while completely ignoring energy. They listen to what a man says about his feelings, about his intentions, about his level of interest, but they do not pay attention to the way his body and energy communicate the truth. They convince themselves that if he says he cares, then he must care. Even if he tells them they are important, then they must be. Even if his hug lacks warmth, but words can be deceptive, while energy never lies. Understanding the way a man hugs you is about more than just physical affection. It is about recognizing patterns, reading between the lines, and trusting your own intuition. If you find yourself questioning whether a man truly values you, stop looking for reassurance in his words and start paying attention to the energy he brings into his physical presence. If his hugs make you feel secure, if they carry a depth that is consistent and unforced, then you know he values you. If his hugs feel empty, obligatory, or strategic, then that is a reflection of something deeper within him, something he may not even be fully aware of himself. A woman who understands the language of energy will never be confused about a man's intentions. She will not need to ask whether he cares because she will feel it. She will not second guess his affection because his energy will make it clear. And most importantly, she will not waste time on men who cannot give her the depth, warmth, and presence she deserves.